Welcome back to the cryptoworld channel, everyone. My name is Josh, and Bitcoin is still finding resistance right here, while this Bitcoin chart shows us a very volatile move is coming soon. On top of that, I'll be taking a look at some other important Bitcoin charts later in the video, such as this one. So definitely stick around to the end of the video so that you don't miss out on any of this important information. And just before we jump into it, you might as well leave a like down below. And if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe with notifications turned on for more updates just like this every single day. But with all of that out of the way, let's get straight to what this video is about. It's right here on the Bitcoin US dollar chart on the 4-hour time frame. And what we can see here is the fact that the Bitcoin price is still holding underneath this important line of descending resistance, which is currently coming in at around 43,000 approximately. So as I've been saying in other recent Bitcoin update videos here on the channel, while Bitcoin is below this line, of course, we are still forming lower highs. So technically we are looking somewhat bearish here while we're still below this resistance. But then the moment we see a confirmed break above this point of resistance, once again at around 43,000, that would be one of the first major signs of a possible trend reversal beginning. And on top of that, anytime the price breaks through an importance level on the chart, we need to see a lot of volume coming in here to back up that move. And what we can see here is over the past 1 week approximately, we have seen the Bitcoin volume decline, which normally points towards a volatile move coming soon when eventually we see a spike in the volumes. So that volatile move could possibly be a shakeout to the downside if we cannot break above that importance line of resistance. But if we can see a break above that line of resistance, then we could see a volatile move to the upside. And this possible volatile move that is coming soon according to the volume indicator is also backed up by the Bollinger Bands here on the 12-hour time frame for Bitcoin, because what we can see right now in the Bollinger Bands is the fact that they are squeezing together here on the 12-hour time frame once again. And almost every time we see this happen, a very volatile move is just around the corner, possibly within a week or so. Just zooming out here to show you some examples of some volatile moves that happened in the past after we saw a squeeze in these Bollinger Bands. One example was back during May 2021. As you can see, the Bollinger Bands squeezed together, and then we saw a very volatile move to the downside. Another example was at the end of July. As you can see, the Bollinger Bands squeezed together, and then we saw a very volatile move to the upside in that case. Another example is the beginning of November. As you can see, we saw the Bollinger Bands squeeze together, and then we saw a lot of volatility coming soon. So that is why there's a high probability of a volatile move coming possibly this week. Now, obviously, that is not guaranteed because that's only going off this Bollinger Bands indicator and the volume declining. And unfortunately, these two indicators do not tell us the direction of that volatile move until we begin to break either resistance or support. So I've already spoken about some levels of resistance for Bitcoin, for example, that 43K level. Also, I will be keeping an eye on this high just here at around 44K, just above 44,000 actually. And then if we do end up breaking above those highs just there, I would target towards around 48,000 due to this possible bump and run reversal pattern, and also because of this possible cup and handle pattern. But both of those patterns rely on the Bitcoin price breaking above this point of resistance first. And I'll be talking about some important levels of support for Bitcoin in just a moment. But before that, let's quickly talk about this importance Bitcoin chart, which shows the Bitcoin price on the daily time frame, which is the black line right here. And it also shows us the Bitcoin funding rates across all exchanges. And to explain the funding rates simply, if there's more demand for long positions, then the funding rates are going to be highly positive. And if there's more demand for short positions, then the funding rates are going to be highly negative. And when the Bitcoin funding rates are positive, that means that the long positions have to pay an extra fee to the short positions. But then when the funding rates are negative, that means the short positions have to pay an extra fee to the long positions just to maintain their positions. So basically, if the Bitcoin price is in an uptrend, we usually see positive funding rates as more and more people are wanting to jump into long positions. But when the Bitcoin price experiences a lot of bearish price action, normally the funding rates flip negative as more and more people are wanting to enter into short positions. And looking at these Bitcoin funding rates is valuable to us because they tell us how much room to the upside or to the downside Bitcoin could realistically have. For example, if the Bitcoin funding rates are extremely positive, like what we saw in around February, March, and April 2021, that means that the room to the upside is very limited because it's very expensive to long Bitcoin. But on the flip side, if the Bitcoin funding rates enter well into negative territory, that means that the room to the downside for the Bitcoin price is very limited because it's becoming more and more expensive to short Bitcoin. So this by itself cannot perfectly predict a market top or market bottom, but once again, it can tell us roughly how much room Bitcoin might have left to the upside before a possible correction, and roughly how much room Bitcoin might have to the downside before a possible bounce back to the upside. And right now, if you're looking at the last value just here, that shows that the Bitcoin funding rates across all exchanges on average are sitting in negative territory, meaning that a lot of people are wanting to short Bitcoin right now, which means that the possible room to the downside is very limited, at least in the shorter term. And taking a look at the last few times that the Bitcoin funding rates entered into negative territory, we saw a lot of this during June and July 2021, which obviously was back here, and that turned out to be an amazing buying opportunity if you're dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin back then. The next time after that was towards the end of September, as you can see, and that was right around here. And once again, that was an amazing buying opportunity if you're dollar cost averaging into Bitcoin at that stage. And then the next time we saw this happen was in around the 4th of December, which was when we saw that flash crash to the downside down towards around 42,000 approximately. And of course, if you bought towards those lows, that also turned out to be a decent buying opportunity. And even if you held from there until now, right now you'll be at around a break even. But to remember, the negative funding rates mean that the room to the downside, at least in the shorter term, is very limited. For example, in that flash crash, once again, we did not go below that low for an entire month. And even then, we only dropped another couple $1,000s or so below the bottom of that original flash crash that we saw in the beginning of December. So as I just said, the room to the downside is very limited. We are slowing down the downside price action in terms of the lows just here, which is somewhat similar to what we saw back in June and July. On top of that, of course, we still have this bullish divergence here on the 12-hour time frame, which is technically still playing out. And for any of the beginners out there, a bullish divergence just means that we're due to see reduced selling pressure, which can either come in the form of sideways price action, which is exactly what we have been seeing, or a slight move to the upside. So basically, this bullish divergence also means that the room to the downside, at least in the shorter term, is very limited, at least when you're looking at these low points right here. On top of that, the Bitcoin price is still holding above the golden pocket, the most important Fibonacci level, coming in at around 40,000, give or take, but the bottom of the golden pocket is coming in at around 39.5k. And by the way, for any new viewers on the channel, these Fibonacci levels might look a little bit different to yours, simply because my chart is on the logarithmic scale using the logarithmic settings for the Fibonacci retracement tool. And the default settings for this tool uses the linear scale. On top of that, if you're looking in the daily RSI, we are very close to oversold territories, at least closer towards oversold than we are to overbought. And in fact, it was only around a week ago that we actually entered into oversold territories on the daily RSI, and we don't see that very often. In fact, one of the last major times that we saw that was back at the end of the May crash when the room to the downside was very limited. And on top of all of that, right now the daily MACD is sitting in negative territories. And taking a look at the last few times we saw that, that was back at the end of September and also back during the end of May leading into June and July. We also are still playing out this massive fractal here on the daily time frame. As you can see, the current day price action is resembling the same sort of price action that we saw back in June and July 2021. In fact, it's resembling it very closely. Even if you're looking in the daily RSI, we are seeing very similar trends, as you can see. But for this fractal to continue to play out, it relies on two things. First of all, we need to remain above the 39.5k level. And second of all, we need to see a break above this descending line of resistance in the daily RSI, which is right now coming in at around 42 to 43 approximately. Because the last time we saw that play out with a break above that descending line of resistance back towards the end of July, of course, that was when the Bitcoin price was just about to begin its next major uptrend. On top of that, the Bitcoin Fear Ingredient Index is still sitting in extreme fear. The subscribers on this channel that have been watching some of my other videos would already know what this means, so I'm not going to explain it again in this video. If you are new to the channel, I definitely recommend you checking out some of my other Bitcoin videos here on the channel. And taking a quick look at the US dollar currency index here on the daily time frame, just before the weekend, we saw a drop off in the US dollar currency index followed by a very small bounce, and today we are seeing another small bounce back to the upside. But as of right now, at the time of filming this video, we are still holding below this important line, which is coming in at around 95.4 on the US dollar currency index. And for anyone new to the channel, the reason why we're looking at the US dollar is of course because Bitcoin is paired against the US dollar in most cases. So if we see the US dollar gets a rejection here and continue with the break to the downside, then that would be bullish for the Bitcoin price. But if we see a break to the upside in the US dollar, then that would be bearish for the Bitcoin price varied against the US dollar. So this is definitely something that I am paying attention to moving forward. And of course, I'll keep you updated on this as things continue to progress here on the channel in these update videos. And if you want to receive extra Bitcoin updates throughout the day, make sure you follow me over on my Twitter. And the link to my Twitter is in the description down below and also in the pinned comment. If you got any value out of this video, I'd really appreciate it if you could just leave a like down below. And if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe with notifications turned on so that you don't miss out on any of these updates that I post every single day. And before you click off, you might as well check out one of these uploads if you haven't already, because these videos can potentially help you make even more money in the crypto markets. But anyway, that is it for this update. I really hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next video.